Good afternoon. I'm here to talk about drones. Specifically, why are drones taking so long to have a real effect on our lives? And that leads me to my second question. Why, if I'm here to talk about drones, do I have a surfer as my background, right? Yes, that is me. As a teenager in the early 70s, beginning to surf. And one of the first lessons you learn very quickly about surfing is that in normal days, big waves come to you in sets of 3 and 4. So you're always keeping an eye on the horizon, because when you see that line, you paddle as fast as you can, you get there as fast as you can, so you can catch the wave of your choice all the way to the beach. Something similar happened to me later in my professional life when I graduated from university with a degree in geodesy and went to work in my field of aerial photogrammetry for a number of years, embarking eventually in a career in sales. And during that enormous period of time, 3 big waves of technological revolution came my way. In 1979, it was the personal computer. In 1990, the internet. And then in the 2000, the smartphone. And yes, I became a user of all 3. And they changed my life almost overnight. But I didn't see them as businesses. I never caught them as waves of professional opportunity. But then something happened. Something funny happened in 2013 when, in my last role with corporate America, I was given the responsibility of a sales team selling land surveying equipment. And when I open my catalog of products, I see a toy plane. So I called my boss in, and I said, "A toy plane? I'm supposed to be selling equipment for land surveyors." And he said, "No, Juan, it's not a toy plane. It's a drone for photogrammetry." And I said, he tried to explain to me that land surveyors around the world, which are our target market, are using it to upgrade from ground work to aerial mapping. And I said, as soon as I heard the word photogrammetry, I snapped. And I said, no way, you cannot do photogrammetry with a toy. I have 750 hours in the back of a Learjet operating a very expensive camera and navigating an aircraft for aerial photogrammetry. You cannot do that with a toy. And he laughed, and I can only imagine him in his office, rolling his eyes, thinking about this old fogey who refused to learn anything new. He asked for my patience and invited me to the offices in Denver for a demonstration. And a few days later, I found myself in the Colorado desert with an engineer who launched the drone into the air, captured aerial data imagery for about 20 minutes, and then we went back to the office. He processed the data, and in a matter of hours, he presented me with this gorgeous map, like a cartographic product with digital terrain model and contour lines, something that would have taken weeks in the old days to produce. And I saw the light. And I said, if that drone can do this for my profession, I can only imagine what it can do for other professions. And I said, this is the one I've been waiting for. This is the 4th wave of my professional life, and I'm going to catch it. And I did. Immediately after this, we start selling the drone very effectively. And then customers are telling me how it changed the way they're doing things. And I start learning about drones and writing articles and interviewing people. And 24 months later, nothing. I don't feel drones in my life. The other three revolutions affected me immediately, overnight. This one was taking its sweet time. It's like I was expecting the Jetsons, and in reality, I was getting the Flintstones, right? So in 2015, at the ripe age of 60, I decided to make a bold move. And I moved physically from the back of the plane to the front of the plane, becoming a commercial pilot. Specifically, flying aerial photogrammetry missions at high altitude in a Cessna Citation, sitting on the right seat as a co-pilot. And it was during those flights that I understood what was happening. The skies were already full, right? You have commercial airliners with hundreds of passengers, you have private jets, and you have an enormous number of small planes and helicopters at low altitude. The radio frequencies are busy, the air traffic controllers are overworked. And I said, of course, this is what's happening. You know, the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration in the US, and all the civil aviation authorities around the world were having a very hard time coming up with a regulation that would allow us to integrate these flying marbles into the sky. But then, a few months later, the FAA surprised me when they issue Part 107. And for those of you not familiar with aviation, Part 107 is exclusively for drones, but the FAA regulates flying in different ways. Part 121 is when you have a commercial airliner with scheduled flights. And Part 91 is non-commercial, mostly for recreational and so on. When they issued Part 107, it was the first time we had one for drones exclusively. But it was very restrictive because it forced all flights to be within the visual range of the operator, and it forced one pilot, one drone rule, which killed the possibility of profitability. And to put it in perspective, an historical perspective for you guys, what happened if in 1990 I give you access to the internet, but only websites that are 200 yards around your house? The impact on your life will be minimal. So at least F-107 gave the industry the opportunity to start working on it. And then I read this article in Commercial UAV News by Eric Mintz, one of the visionaries of our industry, in which he argued that yes, drones are aircraft, but in reality, they behave more like computers that happen to fly. And then it clicked. We're having a second issue here, certification. The civil aviation authorities are very good at understanding, regulating, and certifying aircraft, but they're having a very hard time doing the same with computers that happen to fly. So let's recap what we can do with drones today. We can do mapping, we know that, right? But we can also deliver in rural areas and in some urban areas under waivers and exceptions. We can spray small agricultural fields, we can inspect infrastructure very efficiently, and we can help police and firefighters do their job better. And drones are great at search and rescue. But delivering a pizza in Manhattan, not yet. We're not there yet. We don't have the regulation or the technology. But let's be honest. We all hear the news one way or the other. And we all heard that drones are having a devastating and an immediate impact in theaters of war. Why? There are many reasons, but the two that I would like to focus on today are the skies over theaters of war are almost empty and there are no certification requirements. So the two that makes them successful there prevent them from being successful here. So today I would like to focus on commercial, industrial, and civilian uses. The great news is that at the end of 2025, the FAA announced, they published a document saying we are going to issue Part 108 in the future. And Part 108 corrects the other two. Flights will be beyond visual line of sight, or BVLOS, and one pilot will be allowed to fly many drones, opening the door for profitability. And the best way I have to explain profitability in the era of Part 108, which is in the future, is by analyzing the paradigm of delivering a package. This paradigm has, in reality, two big extremes. In terms of efficiency, on one side, you have this jumbo jet, with thousands of packages going from point A to point B in a matter of hours, very efficient. On the other side, you have a diesel truck weighing 2 tons with a driver to deliver a package this big. So if you can add a drone during Part 108 to that truck, the driver will place the smaller package in the drone and will deliver a bigger package by hand, de facto almost doubling the efficiency on the least efficient side. And the good news is that the drone will fly autonomously to its destination and back, and it will be monitored by a remote pilot supervising many drones. So, in conclusion, are we going to feel the effects of drones in our lives? Yes. In my opinion, it's inevitable, because drones are the definition of the future in motion. But is it going to be immediate? No. Why? Because lives are at stake. The other three revolutions came to our lives to occupy empty spaces. Drones are coming to occupy the spaces that are really crowded. So civil aviation authorities around the world are working very hard to come up with a regulation that will allow them to do this safely. So if you want to know when you are going to feel the effects of drones in your life, follow the news, not only of the technology, but also of the regulation, because when those change, everything else will follow. And me, I'm riding this one all the way to the beach.